So, folks, we have to talk about a pretty scary subject, and that is uh, a topic title that will probably be demonetized on YouTube, but uh, political assassination, sadly, is a thing in the news. So I think it was 2 nights ago, the eve of No King's Day, a man in Minnesota dressed himself up as a police officer in a police officer style vehicle and visited the home of the former Speaker of the House in Minnesota, who's still an elected official or was still an elected official, and shot her and her husband to death. And then he went to the home of another Democratic lawmaker and shot seemingly through the door, striking 17 times the lawmaker and his wife, who was shielding their 12-year-old at the time. And thankfully, the second pair of victims seems to have survived, but the first two did not. They have been killed. And in Minnesota, there was a warning to not go out to certain No Kings protests in the area, specifically because after those two brazen attacks, this man fled, and they was able to escape from police for over 24 hours. And he had a list of targets, listing political figures in the state, as well as abortion clinics, as well as different No Kings locations. And so there was a worry that his intent was to kill as many people as possible. Now, thankfully, they have caught him. He is in custody, and it's very scary. But here's Tim Walz speaking after the initial incident.
We're here today because an unspeakable tragedy has unfolded in Minnesota. My good friend and colleague, Speaker Melissa and her husband Mark, were shot and killed early this morning in what appears to be a politically motivated assassination. Our state lost a great leader, and I lost a dearest of friends. Speaker Hortman was someone who served the people of Minnesota with grace, compassion, humor, and a sense of service. She was a formidable public servant, a fixture and a giant in Minnesota. She woke up every day determined to make this state a better place. She is irreplaceable, and we've been missed by so many. Minnesota's thoughts and prayers are with her family, her loved ones, her children, and her parents. My prayers are, we're here to...
Yeah, and it's some horrid stuff. And make no mistake, guys, this is a political assassination. And also worth bringing up that the victim, Melissa Hortman, by all accounts that I am aware of, was a decent person. She was a good person. And I don't know that we would have agreed with everything politically, but she did not deserve this. I don't know, just this part really, really got to me. And I believe they've confirmed now, but one of the things that Melissa Hortman did in her spare time was train service dogs for veterans. She had this lovely golden retriever named Gilbert who flunked out of service dog school and was also shot and killed in the incident. And he gave everything he had to try and keep her safe. So it's really sad on so many different levels. And I think one of the most obvious initial questions is why the charity confirmed Gilbert's death on their social media. That's so sad. You might be wondering, who could have done this? Why did someone do this? Right? What happened? The man who is suspected and accused of doing this heinous act is a man named Vance Bolter, and he is a whack job. And I say a whack job despite the fact that in a lot of the reporting on this and in a lot of the interviews with people who knew him, people say, oh, he wasn't overtly political. He was a very nice guy. I never saw anything remotely that would indicate this. And I can't stress enough that having looked into this guy, there are so many indications that he would be exactly this kind of guy, actually. It's insane. What's this guy's deal? What's the deal with 57-year-old Vance Bolter? The deal with him is that he seems to have been, for a while now, in charge of private policing groups, private policing companies, and it's very, very, very weird. One of those companies is called Red Lion, I believe. Let's find this here. Yes, Red Lion Group. Found it. So he's the CEO of Red Lion Group. And that is apparently a company that provided security and policing services for various industries in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Now, I don't know if you guys know much about the history of the DRC. It's rough, to say the least. If you're providing security services, you're effectively running a mercenary company. And I've found conflicting reports on this, but he also said he was on the ground doing work in Gaza and the West Bank. And this is where I'm just kind of, I don't know exactly what this means, but he was apparently on the ground during the second intifada in Gaza and the West Bank, and he, quote, sought out militant Islamists in order to share the gospel and tell them that violence wasn't the answer, unquote. I am not entirely sure that I believe that description of work. When I hear a guy in the private policing business is essentially doing mercenary work in the DRC and got his start doing ministry in Gaza and the West Bank during the second intifada, I don't necessarily believe that is just run-of-the-mill proselytizing there, okay? That's all weird, right? Okay, so kind of a mercenary guy, and then recently he came upon hard economic times, so he's not doing so hot financially, he's not doing so hot, economically speaking, and apparently the mercenary work isn't that great, but apparently he also had a passion for preaching in the DRC.
I know nominative determinism isn't a thing, but Vance Bolter sounds like one of those conservative checkout aisle novels protagonist J.K. Rowling names.
It really does. He's like, well, again, I want to throw this up because I find it fascinating. Suspect showed few signs of political extremism before lawmaker shootings. And it's just, that's kind of insane. Friends and associates say Vance Bolter, who was apprehended late Sunday and charged with murdering a lawmaker and her husband, was mild-mannered and did not appear to be fixated on politics. And that just seems like bullshit, doesn't it? That just seems like utter and complete horseshit. And so one might ask, well, okay, he was in the Democratic Republic of Congo and he was doing missionary work? What was that? Like, what did that look like? Well, some people on Reddit actually found footage of one of his sermons, and we're gonna take a look at it.
That God can't take care of.
Dieu ne peut pas enlever.
Nothing.
Il n'y a rien.
There's people, especially in America,
Il y a des gens, particulièrement aux États-Unis,
they don't know what sex they are. They don't know how their sexual orientation. They're confused.
ils ne savent pas ce qu'ils sont exactement. Ils ont une confusion.
The enemy has gotten so far into their mind and their soul.
Et l'ennemi est entré dans le fond de leur pensée et de leur âme.
But this word
Mais cette parole
cuts deeper
va aux profondeurs.
because it's living
Parce qu'elle est
and
vivante.
it's active.
Et elle est agissante.
And God goes down there and pulls that out.
Et elle peut entrer dans notre cœur et enlever tout ce qui est de mal.
And he sets every person free.
Et pouvoir nous libérer.
There shouldn't be one person in this room
Il doit y avoir quelqu'un dans cette salle
that leaves tonight
qui est en train de vivre le péché.
with a sin or a problem you're dealing with in your heart and soul.
Peut-être que tu as un problème qui est vraiment dans ton cœur qui te fait souffrir.
Because Jesus has the answer.
Parce que Jésus-Christ a la réponse,
But he may ask a question.
mais il va te poser une question.
The Holy Spirit may come to you.
Le Saint-Esprit peut venir vers toi.
He may come to a man
Il peut venir vers un homme.
and say, "Who's that woman?"
Et puis il va demander qui es-tu.
Or he may come to a woman
Il peut venir à une femme.
and say, "Who's that
Il
man?"
peut demander à la femme qui est cet homme. Il demande à l'homme qui est cette femme.
He already knows.
Dieu connaît déjà.
Or he may say, "Where are you?"
Il peut te demander où es-tu.
And when God asks a question,
Mais quand Dieu pose cette question,
we need to answer.
nous avons besoin de répondre.
And if I'm that man that's doing something with a woman,
Même si ce que tu as fait avec un homme ou une femme,
and the word of God comes to me,
et la parole de Dieu vient vers moi,
I can be like Cain
je ne peux pas être comme Caïn
and say, I don't know,
et dire au Seigneur, je ne sais pas, je ne sais pas.
But then that's what I get. That's what I deserve if I don't acknowledge God.
Si je ne reconnais pas Dieu, c'est ce que je mérite.
Yeah. Is it surprising that a guy like this, who's talking about how, like, you deserve to die if you're, contrary to the Lord, who's talking about how fucked up America is for allowing trans people to exist in public? It's surprising to you that this guy shot somebody? Like, I was raised in, like, a slightly less extreme version of this, but, like, there is a blindness in America that accepts this kind of hate as normal and non-political. And that's something that we all need to be very aware of, especially around Pride Month times, because in America, this type of hatred is seen as, like, almost a default. Or at least we're not that far away from a time in which this type of hatred was the default. Yeah, these people don't actually understand the Bible. Yeah, 100%. One of his friends said he watched a lot of InfoWars. I mean, like, dude, InfoWars and, like, religious fundamentalism, that'll turn someone into a mass shooter real quick. I mean, like, this is psycho shit, frankly. Like, I'm sorry. This is psycho shit. Minnesota lawmaker shooting suspect stalked his victims like prey. Absolutely nuts. 3 representatives in Wisconsin and Michigan say they were on Bolter's list. Senator Tammy Baldwin's name was on list. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the news is going to be updates on the list. But it's insane, right? And I just want to throw out there this. The immediate aftermath of the shooting, right? And this kind of brings us back around to what we were talking about when it comes to conservative media and liberal media. Liberal media, it's like, yep, they caught the guy. End of the story. In conservative media, it is completely and utterly unacceptable to recognize that this guy is a conservative religious zealot, who is militantly adhered to the Christian nationalist movement. I just want to throw this out there because this is a small snippet, right, of just like what are conservatives talking about. Joey Manorino, who has more than 600,000 followers on X, who talked about Tiesler semen constantly, just kept posting on Twitter about T-word semen, just obsessed with this stuff. Apparently still going strong, posting over on Twitch. Rumor has it she was preparing to switch parties. The Democrats are violent scum. It was a ridiculous rumor. One of the last photos of Hortman alive was an image of her at the DFL's big annual fundraising event, the Humphrey Mondale Dinner, which took place just hours before her assassination. No matter, Cernovich wanted his new friends in federal law enforcement to act. The FBI must take Tim Walz into custody immediately. Fresh off his humiliating defeat at the hands of President Donald Trump, world's richest man Elon Musk quote tweeted someone again falsely alleging Hortman was killed by the left, and added the far left is murderously violent. In conservative media, they are trying to make this guy this anti-LGBTQ conservative pastor who watches InfoWars, trying to make him out to be a leftist. This guy who's anti-abortion, anti-LGBTQ, anti-big government. Like, it is a distraction. It is a deliberate attempt to just invert the story so that people will blather about it ceaselessly, and it gives the lie more reality in the eyes of their base. The line that conservative talking heads are putting down is that, oh, well, Tim Walz was connected to the shooter because the shooter was appointed by Mark Dayton, one of the previous governors of Minnesota, into like a large, like 270 person panel that had something to do with like working conditions in the state. And then Tim Walz reappointed him to the same panel. And so he's connected to Tim Walz, and Tim Walz had, his potential rival killed because she was going to switch parties and become too powerful, more powerful than he could possibly imagine. And so, like, that's the conspiracy. The conspiracy is just Tim Walz is directing hits on other politicians in Minnesota. It's insane. It's obviously insane. But I mean, this is what you got. The left kills the CEO of United Healthcare. Kills two Israeli ambassador staffers, attempts twice to assassinate the president, doxes and attempts to murder federal ICE agents and police all week, and now kills a Minnesota state representative and her husband and injures a senator and his wife. The left has become a full-blown domestic terrorist organization, and it's just the left. Just anyone who identifies as the left in this particular formulation. The far left is murderously violent. Yeah, the people who want all you dumb motherfuckers to have healthcare. Yeah, we're the very violent ones. Yeah, man, I want you to have free healthcare, but yeah, I'm definitely murderous. It's very, very bizarre and gross. Donald Trump has been attacking Tim Walz as grossly incompetent for a lone wolf assassin to kill a lawmaker. Hasn't called. It's very weird. Like the local Minnesota paper has had to step in and be like, no, Tim Walz isn't ordering hits on local politicians. Like, the fact that we have to have this conversation is stupid as hell. Also, just as an FYI, as part of the Minnesota Star Tribune's coverage, they did an interview with one of Vance Bolter's friends who describes him as a huge fan of Donald Trump. It's all just an attempt at deflection, man. You've got like senators like Mike Lee cracking jokes about how, oh, it's just so funny. It's just so funny that like the look at that. Look at this. This guy's in actual Congress of the United States of America. This is what happens when Marxists don't get their way. It's an image of Vance Bolter wearing a creepy Halloween mask at one of the doorbells he visited at the home he visited. That's fucking nuts, right? Like, I'm sorry. There was just a political assassination, and you are using it to make wild aspersions about who this is coming from. And also, like, I just, framing it as like an inevitable conclusion. This is messed up. This is like the day after, I mean, on a much smaller scale, but this is like if somebody the day after 9/11 was cracking jokes about like how the towers really had it coming or something. Like, it's insane. That's wild. Why would you do that? It really just shows the depth of the rot at the heart of the Republican Party. And in response to this, by the way, Senator Tina Smith from Minnesota sent a letter, or sorry, a staffer from Senator Tina Smith sent a letter or an email, I guess, to staff for Mike Lee. I knew Melissa Hortman. Many people in this office did. She was a longtime friend of Senator Smith's, who had seen her hours before she was murdered. So you'll forgive my candor as I speak through enormous grief. It is important for your office to know how much additional pain you've caused on an unspeakably horrific weekend. I'm not sure what compelled you or your boss to say any of those things, which in addition to being unconscionable, also may very well be untrue. But that is not the point. Why would you use the awesome power of a United States Senate office to compound people's grief? Is this how your team measures success? Using the office of U.S. Senator to post not just one, but a series of jokes about an assassination. Is that a successful day of work on Team Lee? Did you come into the office Monday and feel proud of the work you did over the weekend? Let's recap Saturday so you fully understand what Minnesota was going through. Melissa Hortman and her husband were murdered. Senator Hoffman and his wife were shot numerous times and remain hospitalized. By the grace of God, it appears they will survive. Senators are discovered to be on a hit list of an armed man on the run, Senator Lee's colleague. And the decision of the office of Senator Mike Lee was not to publicly condemn the violence or to express condolences to her shattered children. It was to intimate that Mark and Melissa somehow deserved this by making jokes. Did you have any consideration for the survivors and her family, for the Hoffmans in the hospital, for their families? You exploited the murder of a lifetime public servant and her husband to post some sick burns about Democrats. Did you see this as an excellent opportunity to get likes and retweets? Have you absolutely no conscience, no decency? I pray to God that none of you ever go through anything like this. I pray that Senator Lee and your office begin to see the people you work with in this building as colleagues and human beings. And I pray that if, God forbid, you ever find yourselves having to deal with anything similar, you find yourselves on the receiving end of the kind of grace and compassion that Senator Mike Lee could not muster. Lastly, I suggest you take a few minutes today to read about Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark. They were remarkable people. Here's a story in the St. Paul Pioneer Press called Melissa Hortman. Once a teenager with a job making burritos, she became a powerful Minnesota lawmaker who trained service dogs. She was a force and a human being, and I beg of you to exercise some restraint on social media as we continue to grieve. Ed Shelleby, office of Senator Tina Smith. And like, I don't know, that did my heart good to read, but understand that fundamentally Republican staffers, they've discarded their empathy. They've discarded their, ability to view other human beings as people. They have abandoned those things by the wayside in order to excel at their jobs and climb up the political ladder. And so like, I do not believe that letter is going to, or email is going to move the staffer in Mike Lee's office who runs the social media. But like, I wish it did. I wish we had better, kinder politics. Like the issue here is expecting these Republican staffers to like have a human reaction to be like, oh yeah, wait, maybe I shouldn't have mocked like the people who gave their lives for their state, And I just have to mention here, what we are seeing is emblematic of what the Republican Party is. There has been a movement to try and say MAGA's not real Republican. No, MAGA is the Republicans. Republicans are just the MAGA movement. You don't have like Republicans, but they're like, good ones. No, they're all MAGA. This doesn't come out of nowhere. I really want to emphasize that because, when we see headlines that a political assassin was not political, and yet we can easily dig up video of him preaching about the degeneracy of LGBTQ people and how like sinners all deserve to die, like immediately after that, like obviously that's overtly political. That is an overtly political stance. You can think of it, well, that's just religion, but that's also political, isn't it? And that doesn't come out of nowhere. So here's something that the Montana Young Republicans posted about 8 days ago, and I just really want to hammer home here. The rot in the Republican Party runs to its core. Now, if you guys have been watching my channel, you might notice something about this hilarious meme. Feeling a little base today. Kissy face. You're getting deported. That seems odd. It's superimposed over a bunch of pictures of, well, some very white soldiers in some very short shorts. Now, some of you are like, well, that looks kind of gay. And that is correct. It does look kind of like that. But if you've been watching my videos, you'll recognize that this is a piece of Rhodesian propaganda. The image that that text is put on top of is a Rhodesian like propaganda piece. It's a photo shoot to make the soldiers look tough. And I know that because it was used in a neo-Nazis video that I went through and debunked his claims about Rhodesia as a state. Because obviously Nazis and white supremacists love the state of Rhodesia, a country or a territory so racist that literally it was a world pariah. And, well, that is being posted intentionally by the Montana Young Republicans. They know that the based part isn't really the "you're getting deported" text, it's the image that that text is put on, which is explicitly propaganda for a white supremacist, white nationalist ethno-state. A country that could literally prosecute black people if they quit their jobs. Yeah, it's pretty disgusting. And that's being posted by the Montana Young Republicans. You know, a lot of these other groups aren't doing too hot either. But I wanted to check in here and just... And I think you all get the point, but I wanted to bring this up. This is from the Dallas Express, an outlet that calls itself the People's Paper. And, well, they posted an article. What did they do to make people hate them so much? Immediately after the man on the right assassinated the woman in the center of the photo. And it's written by under the pen name of Jay Galt, a character from an Ayn Rand novel. And yeah, what did Representative Melissa Hortman and other victims do that made someone hate them enough to kill? That's the question Minnesota Democrats are scrambling to answer after the former House Speaker and her husband were gunned down in their Brooklyn Park home in what police have been called a politically motivated assassination. The man accused of pulling the trigger, Vance Bolter, isn't a right-wing extremist. He's a Democratic insider who held official appointments under Governor Tim Walz and former Governor Mark Dayton, both Democrats. A 2019 state documents confirm Bolter served on the governor's Workforce Development Board as recently as 2023. So why would someone from within the party kill two of its most prominent figures? Again, like they are just absolutely lying. You know, it's insane. Like the framing of this is insane. Theories are swirling. Was Bolter a radical leftist who believed moderate Democrats like Hortman were betraying the cause and weren't left enough? Or was this something darker? Did Democrats kill their own so they could turn around and blame Republicans? What seems clear is this. There's no evidence this was a right-wing plot. Bolter was a Democrat who allegedly turned violent against his own, despite the fact that his closest friends and associates described him as a huge fan of Donald J. Trump. And he left on missionary work to proselytize in the Congo and preached against LGBTQ people. Whatever this site is, must have zero credibility. It is, I would describe it as a website with zero credibility. It's not a good website. I don't think it reports accurate information. And if you just go and you scroll the news stories, it's pretty conservatively weighted. Governor Abbott scheduled to sign $10 billion property tax relief package. Justice Thomas days away from another historic court milestone. Trump joins nation in celebrating U.S. Army's 250th birthday. COVID crusader goes on the offensive, asks for sanctions against Houston Methodist. The Daily Stormer? I mean, no, it's the Dallas Express, but like I wouldn't rely on it for news. And so we live in a time of monsters. And as these monsters rampage and rove the lands, the most powerful people in the Democratic Party should probably be standing up and pushing back on this, should probably be resisting the worst impulses of this Republican administration by all means available to them. And yet, so many have chosen capitulation or to bend the knee or think that like, oh, you just have to like, shake hands with Charlie Kirk a few times and everything will work out great for you. What needs to happen here is actual organization, actual courage. People need to stand up, get out there, and like continue making noise. And we will, by the way, we're going to organize more protests. But like Democratic politicians now more than ever should be speaking truth to power. And the ones that aren't are too cowardly for us to conscionably allow amongst us, among us. It's just not something we can accept anymore. I don't know. Don't rank Andrew Cuomo, I guess. And rank Zoran Mamdani number 1. It's sad that Van Hollen is one of the better examples, and I don't even think he's doing enough. He's not. Like, very few are actually doing what is necessary right now. Like, the closest I can think is like Bernie and AOC. Like, they're touring the country. Tim Walz also touring the country, like organizing protest, organizing people, giving them hope, explaining the situation, like, putting it into understandable terms what is happening, because it is monstrous, the damage that is being done. It is monstrous. The fact that we can have like a political assassination here in Minnesota, and like that's just a funny moment for the conservatives to meme. Like, oh, it's just hilarious. It's just hilarious that one of our guys tried to and succeeded in killing a Democratic politician. And guys, in Minnesota, one thing you guys have to understand about the House and the Senate in Minnesota, they have been evenly split by taking, one of the Democratic lawmakers out of commission and killing another. That meaningfully changes the power dynamic in the Minnesota legislature. And now that was the goal. And it's just, we need strength. We need politicians who are actually doing something. So I guess all I have to leave you with here is we're going into the primary season for good and for real. And we're also gearing up for the midterm elections in, a little over a year and a half, or a little under a year and a half. Either way. And as we go into that time, look for the helpers. Look for people who are going to help. I know it sounds trite, but like the people who are going to help right now are going to be very vocal about it. The people who are going to help right now are going to fight for it. They're going to fight for you, and they're going to fight for their communities. And we need more people willing to do that.
Fill her seat? Is a special election occurring?
Von Tux, I have no idea. I believe a special election will be held, but I'm not sure when. I might be wrong about that too. I'm oddly enough not an expert about what happens when political assassinations happen. It's a heavy story, and it's scary, Scary as hell. I think something that we need our politicians to reckon with is just that a large number and a large amount of the Republican base has been radicalized to being guys exactly like this assassin. A lot of the Republican base, they believe all the same things that guy did. And I think what needs to happen is, as we go forward, we need to have more serious conversations, not necessarily about how to convince all those people that we're right. I mean, obviously, it'd be great if we could do that, but at the very least, to de-radicalize the Republican base. We need to have more conversations about that. We need to have, I think, more action taken on that, because otherwise, like, that, what do you do with these people? Like, what do you do with people who have fully committed to a death cult and believe that, like, demons are literally running the Democratic Party? Sorry, the Democratic Party. You know, like, that's how do we coexist? And, like, the only solution I can think of is by moving the Overton window far, far, far to the left and de-radicalizing people in that way. But that's, again, going to take a lot more conversations than just this one. But I guess all I have left to say is rest in peace, Representative Melissa Hortman, and thank you for giving your life for this country.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube and Swishy streams. All that content is bursting the scenes. Politics, being flame more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord. Riverboat Jack.